Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum to Dr. Zuriana. We are from Group 3. So under Strategic Management Accounting, we will present about the Potter approach in handling the strategy issue. I will introduce our group member. There are 5 members in Group 3, starting with Hafizatul Najihah, me, Nurul Aini Sofia, Siti Nur Adeline Fatihah, Nurizatul Husna, and lastly, Nur Aida Adliana. So I will present about the introduction and objective for this presentation. So we start with the introduction. So here is the overall framework for our topic, the Potter approach. So strategic management accounting is very crucial for decision making made by the management. So under strategic management accounting, there are discussion regarding the strategy issue. So this strategy issue need to be handled by the management because strategy issue can reflect the performance of the organization. So, for the organization, establish a practical strategy and allocate resources efficiently. We have Potter approach. So, Potter approach is one of the way for the management to handle the strategy issue. So, Potter approach can emphasize the understanding competitive force and devising effective countermeasure for the organization. So, as we know, Potter approach have 3 types. So, first is value chain analysis, five force, and competitive advantage. And each type for Potter approach have its own function. As a value chain analysis can enable the organization to analyze the internal firm activity. For five force, can access the business competition, and lastly, competitive advantage can know how to pursue the competitive advantage in the selective market scope. And in our current business environment, which is dynamic business climate, there are certain external factors such as economic condition or pattern that can impact the decision making made by the management. We move to the objective for our presentation. So the main objective we gain from the study is we want to improve understanding for the Potter approach regarding its handle strategy issue, its implication, and its impact on the organization. Aside from that, we also derive other objective based on the main objective. The other objective is we want to review the application of Potter model to manage the strategy issue. Second, we want to assess the effectiveness of the Potter approach in gaining a competitive advantage. And third is we want to examine the connection between the Potter approach and strategic management accounting. And lastly, we want to determine how the evolving business environment can affect the Potter method.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I will continue to discuss the historical development of Potter approach. So, this approach was introduced by Michael Potter. He wrote 3 different books. First, in 1980, the competitive strategy that discussed the five force framework. I will discuss this further later. In 1985, he wrote a book, Competitive Advantage, that discussed on the value chain. Here was the introduction of generic strategy. And lastly, in 1990, he wrote The Competitive Advantage of Nations that discuss on the diamond model which present the connected elements that influence competitive advantage of nations. Next, we move to the key concepts and the principles. Okay, first the Potter five forces. As we can see in the diagram here, the five forces include industry rivalry, threats of new entrants, bargaining power of supplier and also buyer, and lastly, threats of substitute products and services. So, this framework is useful to determine the competitive intensity and attractiveness of industry, which they emphasize issues of competition, which strategies are built up by this approach. Okay, so we go to the next one, which is the Porter value chain analysis. So their core principle is the customer's values. The company must see the connections between the system and also the activities that illustrating their impact on cost and profit margins. They also need to analyze the elements that contribute to a lower cost or higher quality of product or services by separating primary and secondary activities. So, this will lead to the competitive advantage to be achieved. Okay, lastly, competitive strategy and competitive advantage. To pursue competitive advantage, the companies must adopt competitive strategies in the business, which is the generic strategic, including the cost leadership that supply competitive price products or services while maintaining quality. The second one is differentiation strategy, which develop unique and distinct products so buyers believe to be valued. And last one is the focus strategies that involves companies' effort on serving a market sector, client group, and product line.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Next, I'll continue the presentation with critics and limitation of the Porter approach. Cost, leadership, differentiation, and focus are the three of Porter's generic strategies that are frequently criticized for being challenging to successfully implement. The market dynamic, shifting consumer preference, and resource limitation, and according to the critics, it make it difficult to achieve sustainable differentiation or cost leadership. Generally, these strategies might not offer a strong enough competitive advantage in highly disruptive or dynamic industry. Next, based on the article Supports and Critique, it's also mentioned in his books Competitive Advantage and Competitive Strategy. Michael Porter gained recognition as a prominent figure in management. However, the theory faced extensive commentary, refinement, reassessment, and criticism regarding the practical applicability. One of area that focus was on the generic strategy discussed in the previous section. Last is about the choice of strategy is significantly influenced by factors such as firm size, resource availability, and industry and competitive analysis. Porter argues in his book that for a business to succeed, it should compete based on one strategy, which is cost leadership, differentiation, or focus. With comparative analysis with other strategic management approach, we have three strategic management approach, which are Delta model, Blue Ocean strategy, and also RBV approach. First is Delta model. For this model, it emphasizes that customers should be at the center of all organizational activities and strategic decision making. It also emphasizes how crucial it is to match organizational initiative with customer needs and preference in order to gain a competitive edge. Next is Blue Ocean strategy. For this strategy, it is developed by Kim and Melbourne. This strategy shifting the strategy emphasis away from competing in already existing markets and towards the creation of entirely new markets. It also encourages companies to pursue differentiation and cost leadership simultaneously. The Blue Ocean strategy also encourages business to look for new market spaces where competition is irrelevant. Next is RBV, which is a resource-based view. You can see the diagram for the model RBV. For RBV, it achieves a more balanced and holistic perspective on strategic management. It also highlights the importance of developing a competitive advantage. Resource-based view also generate greater profit through valuable organizational resources and capabilities.
Hi, I'm Nifizatul Husna, Mitimat Rozama with metric number 281613, and I will proceed with the applications of Porter approach in different industry to handle strategic management concerns. First is Ramadan hotel industry. This industry applied the Porter approach to differentiation strategy. Basically, differentiation strategy allowed hotels to promote unique product and services, maintaining a competitive edge. Focus differentiation strategy involve catering to specific customer segments, developing a strong industry reputation, and offering specialized product or services. Next, on the cheminformatic industry. The cheminformatic industry is leveraging the Porter approach to develop strategic plans. By entering high technology fields that require significant investment, companies basically can establish a competitive advantage. Thus, the applications of the Porter approach in cheminformatic industry is driven by the need for technological advancements. Next is on the food and beverage industry. The food and beverage industry utilize the Porter approach to determine its competitive strategy. Companies focus on differentiation, cost leadership, and hybrid strategy to get a competitive edge. Thus, Porter's ideas help organizations to differentiate, generate better product, and to compete. Moving on to the automobile industry, where the Porter approach has been applied in the automobile industry to analyze the competitive dynamics. For example, in the case of Proton, a Malaysian automobile manufacturer, the Porter approach can be applied to analyze the challenges it faced in acquiring necessary technology and how it affected its competitiveness. Using Porter's 5 forces model, the industry competition, threat of substitute, buyer power, supplier power, and threat of new entrants were assessed to make informed strategic decisions. Hence, Proton can understand the automotive industry competitive dynamic and make strategic decisions using Porter's 5 forces model. Next, on the gas industry. The gas industry effectively applies the Porter approach to analyze competitive forces. Analysis of China's shale gas industry using the 5 forces model reveals the influence of supplier, buyer, substitutes, new entrants, and also existing competitor. Thus, government policies, laws, and technological constraints shape the gas industry competitive landscape, including the shale gas. Next is manufacturing industry. The manufacturing industry utilizes the Porter approach to analyze competitive factors and drive performance. In this case, environmental regulations force companies to internalize the externality potentially affecting competitiveness. This is why Porter's 5 forces model and Industry 4.0 and additive manufacturing help organizations evaluate strategic impact and address difficulties. And the last one is on the technology or IT industry. Large software companies in particular have embraced the Porter approach to assess competitor strength, potential substitutes, and supplier bargaining power. By thoroughly analyzing these factors, companies can get a comprehensive understanding of their market position and make informed strategic decisions. To stay competitive, technology companies must integrate IT with strategic planning. Technology projects that support corporate goals can boost creativity, efficiency, and customer value. Next is methodology. Basically, the present study of approaches to handle strategic management issue of Porter approach rely heavily on secondary data, primarily sourced from academic paper such as journal and article. We conducted a systematic search for relevant academic publications on the topic, mostly using Google Scholar and ResearchGate that allows access to a vast area of scientific materials. Keywords such as handling issues management, Porter's approach, and others were used as part of the search strategy.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Siti Nur Adlin Fatia binti Masaad with metric number 281533. I will present about the discussion and conclusion. So, in this research, we compare the finding and discussion from 10 different articles. From the literature review, we can see that Porter have published 3 books which contain his approach on business strategy and now called as Porter approach. So, in his book, he has introduced 3 types of approach, which are 5 forces, value chain analysis, and competitive strategy and competitive advantage. There are some industry that were applying Porter approach and most of the company gain success. In example, Romanian hotel industry has applied generic strategy from Porter's second book, which are differentiation strategy. As the result, they were success in their companies, performance in the industry, but the success of the strategy must be depend on how the company adapt with the approaches. Other than Romanian, IT industry also gained a success in implementing 5 forces, and they found the element of this approach are helpful to the company's strategies. The success in implementing the approach is depend on the way firm conduct and adapt with the approach. For instance, cheminformatics industry effectiveness in applying Porter approach is still in progress since they do not have a high technology to support the approach. According to the literature, generic strategy are regularly being criticized by firms since it is very challenging to be implemented. The implementation must consider all aspects, which are firm size, the resources, and the industry dynamics that may impact the choice of the strategy. Next, resource-based view, RBV, and Porter approach can make a perfect combo if they are integrated effectively because Porter approach stress on the strategy can be used by firm to surpass the competitive force, while RBV focus on the need of using valuable organization resource and capabilities to develop a competitive advantage and increase the profit. Other than RBV, Delta model can combine with 5 forces strategy and help the firm to differentiate themselves through customer-centric strategies. while addressing competitive pressure resulting in a long-term competitive advantage. It is because data strategy focus on customer, where the customer is a very important person since they have played a center of organizational activities and decision-making strategy. By understanding customer need, firm can gain more competitive edge. Meanwhile, blue ocean strategy are contrast with porter approach, where the blue ocean would create a new market opportunity and stay away from the existing market. So, they are very contradicting since porter would use an existing market for competition. In conclusion, all objectives have been answered in this study and were explained clearly from history, where Potter first book in 1980 to his last book in 1990, with all the strategies that he introduced in the literature review section. All strategies have their own uniqueness in handling the firm problem, and the firm must choose the best strategies to be implemented into their firm to avoid any problem that might arise. That's all from us. Thank you.